Mike.
Mike is there.
I'm here.
Everybody's here.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday, January the 18th, 2024 Nantucket Conservation Meeting starting just after 5 o'clock. Permit me to confirm that all members who are present can be heard. Members, when I call your names, please respond in the affirmative. Mark Beal.
Here.
Tim Brain.
Here.
Seth Engelborg.
Here.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Here.
Joe Plandowski.
Here.
Linda Williams.
Here.
The meeting is being held entirely remotely, so all participants are participating via Zoom. The public may participate via YouTube. There are directions on the Times website as to how to join. If anybody wishes to speak, please raise your hand either in your camera window or virtually and wait to be recognized by the chair. Please state your name and any relationship you might have to the project before speaking. Please keep your device muted when you're not speaking so that you're not picked up by the recording or creating a distraction. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating via video conference. Please accordingly be aware that others may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. We'll start the meeting with public comment on issues not being heard this evening. And seeing none, moving on to public hearing notices of intent. The following are continued. Carol W. Dean Revocable Trust, 48 West Maya Comet Road, continued until February the 1st. And Great Harbor Yacht Club, 96 Washington Street, also continued until February the 1st. So the first notice of intent before us this evening is Lampoon Nominee Trust, 6 West Cove Place.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the applicant, Art Gasparo of Nantucket Engineering. And also here with me, I believe I can't see all participants, but is Mr. Wood and I believe Mr. Zeising. We are back before the commission for further discussion on the notice of intent for the relocation of the structure within the buffer zone to the bordering and isolated vegetated wetland. And the owner had hoped to have further discussion with the commission with respect to the proposed structure location as shown on the plan and as discussed at the previous meeting. He feels strongly, as he had sort of said at the trust, he's the trustee, and as he stated at the previous meeting, that the structure location shown in green does meet the requirements for a waiver, given that a waiver had previously been issued for the structure to be located where it currently is. In our relocation, we are improving the distance from the wetland resource area compared to what it exists. So with that, we haven't filed any additional information, and it's really a hope, I think, to have additional discussion with the commission concerning the position of the structure.
Thank you.
I'll defer to Mr. Wood to follow up.
Glenn?
Yeah, just quickly, Mr. Chair, thank you, and good evening, everyone. The Land Bank has not had an opportunity to go back and review the comments from the last hearing regarding the intensity of use of the access way through the property. There was comment on that. So the sole discussion that would be advancing tonight through the property owner and Mr. Bailey would be their continued efforts to see if the commission would approve this footprint as proposed. So I want to just make it clear up front that we are asking for a continuance tonight, but to continue to assess the comments at the last hearing about the intensity of use of the way. So we're not looking to have any discussion on that, but it's the hope of at least the Land Bank tonight that we can get a strong sense from the commission members as to whether they would be prepared to accept this proposed barn location, or if not, then the property owner and the land bank obviously have to go back and have further discussions beyond that. So I just want to make that clear that we are looking for a continuance this evening. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Glenn. Mark Beal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to thank you, Art, and the applicant for squaring away the barn on the will be the northerly property line, I think, of my, well, for whatever direction it is, squaring it away the property line. I think that took out some of the square feet in the 25-foot zone. Is that correct, Art?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes,
Yeah.
we included a table on the right-hand side of the plan as to comparing the areas within existing and proposed within the 25-foot buffer zone. I believe it's a 1 square foot increase. I think I would say offset by the increased separation distance.
Thank you, Art. And Dan, Mr. Bailey, would you, well, actually, excuse me, I'm jumping slightly out of turn here. Are there any further comments or questions from commissioners before I go to Mr. Bailey? And I must say I took Mr. Wood out of context. I apologize to everyone. And as I see both Linda and Michael Mizzarelli's hand up, Linda, why don't you go first?
I'm just going to reiterate my concerns about why not to move it over on the other side and eliminate any problems on the north side of that easement. So that's just me. I've been
Okay.
pretty consistent about my concern about that, since there is another location, a viable location for this structure. It's moving anyway. It can just as easily move south as move north. And if it moves north, it's becoming an impact under our jurisdiction. If it moves south, not so much.
Thank you, Linda. Yes, then Michael Mizzarelli. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I guess, we've been talking about it for 3 or 4 consecutive meetings now. I certainly would be in favor of, I'm conflicted with, we don't allow building within the 50. There is an alternative to get it out of the 25, although, we've been talking about this for 3 or 4 meetings now anyways. I suppose if the majority of the commission feels that it's okay to do this location, then I certainly would consider it, but I want to listen to Mr. Bailey as well as further comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the constraints on the site and the fact that there's no location for the structure to exist completely outside the 50-foot buffer, I think the applicant here has done their due diligence and found a location that is suitable. So I'm okay with it as is drawn on the plan. I would just point out too, they do have a proposed restoration area, and maybe as additional mitigation for the structure, we could ask them to beef up that restoration area or do some other restoration elsewhere on site, which I think should be easily attainable given the type of property that's there. But I think with some minor additional mitigation and the historic history of the property, I am comfortable with the location.
Thank you, Seth. And I broadly agree with you. And so in answer to your concerns, Linda, as Seth has pointed out, there is really there is nowhere where it can be moved outside of the 50. And so I think that is a constraint on on our decision making. And I know you'd like to contradict me. And in terms of square footage, you may well be right, but I think I'm right speaking broadly. But don't let me put words into your mouth. What would you like to say? Linda, would
Pretty
you like-
much that, because I think if it moves south, it moves further away. So less of it is an impact. That's my point. If there's a space on the lot that is less of an impact in the 25 to 50, then that's where it should go. But also, Mr. Chairman, I want to raise a point of order here. We have a guest and they cannot be here, and TB cannot be here unless they legally identify themselves. We went through this at another meeting this week, and they're not allowed to be on the site without identifying themselves with full names.
Fair enough. But they haven't actually chimed in.
Should we chime in now with our name?
I guess that would assuage Linda's concerns.
Yes, my name is Ed Gillum. For the record, I'm James E. Gillum Jr. on the notification I got the note for the notice of intent for 5 Gingy Lane. So that's the one I
Ed,
will.
we can see you. It's the guys at the bottom of the page that are not identified. They're not allowed to actually legally be on the Zoom without identifying themselves. I see Land Bank is there, but TB, and there was one that said guest. And Ed, you're fully visible.
Okay, I understand
Lovely face.
that. Thank you, Lynn.
So while TB identifies themselves, let's continue. And as I see nothing further from commissioners, Dan, thank you for your patience. Mr. Bailey, would you like to? You have
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. All I wanted to make, the first point I wanted to make is that the plan shows the barn now at 5.3 feet from the property line. We would be happy to accept a condition that says it's 5 feet from the property line. I'm not the engineer and I haven't done the calculations, but I think that would get us to the point where the amount within the 25 would be below what's currently within the 25. Maybe not real material, but not material in terms of environmental impact, but perhaps material in terms of showing that it's truly moved further away and the amount of square footage within the 25 is reduced. Mr. Engelborg's comment regarding additional restoration, we have no issue with that. We'd be happy to do that. The other thing that we'd be happy to do to improve the ecological environmental condition would be to infiltrate roof runoff from the barn. That's something we hadn't talked about before, but I was thinking about this today, and that I thought that was something that we could offer. And it's true, there's no place we can relocate within 50, and if we did relocate elsewhere on the site, then we have to start thinking about parking spaces and other things. This is something that we spent a lot of time, again, with the land bank on, and we think it works, and it allows the land bank to go forward with the changes to the road. I know the Concom has raised some issues about that, but that's not our issue. As far as we're concerned, we're ready. We're ready to close, but the land bank may not be. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you,
And
Dan.
Hunter, did you have something you wanted to offer?
Nope, you said it all, other than we can submit, we have a couple of weeks, something for more mitigation. I think the actual plan that we've shown can actually reduce parking. More restoration.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So is the sense of the commission that we accept its position with what's been offered, and then good thumbs up from Tim Brain and Mark Beal and Mike Miserelli and Joe Tandowski. So on that note, let's continue this until February the 1st. So moving on, we have 1416 Sheep's Pond LLC, 14 and 16 Sheep's Pond Road. Brian Madden. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental, representing the applicant. So this is a relocation of structures and reconstruction of new structures further away from the eroding coastal bank. All the proposed house and appurtenances outside the 100-foot buffer zone. The areas within the jurisdictional 100-foot buffer zone on number 16, containing the existing remaining house, septic tank, driveway are all proposed to be restored in place and revegetated with native material. At the last meeting, we were waiting for natural heritage, and we've closed that loop. And I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions from commissioners? Any questions from members of the public? And seeing none, we entertain a motion to close. Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Tim. Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote. Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And that moves us on to Nantucket Islands Land Bank, 40 Weston Avenue. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. I am here on a continuance to request permission to install a bench at 40 Western Ave. We require a waiver for this because it actually falls within a coastal dune field. I presented this last time and we did not have our natural heritage letter yet, and they came back with no restrictions. And I'm happy to represent the proposed bench, or I'm also happy to request to close the hearing.
Thank you. Speaking for myself, I may be having short-term memory issues, but they're not quite that short. So I don't see that we really need to continue unless anyone else. Okay, great. And if there's nothing from members of the public, how about a motion to close? Thank you, Mike. Seconded by Joe. So by roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Goldman. Aye. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you very much.
And that moves us on to Manila at 5 Gingy Lane, and Mark Ritz presenting.
Good evening, Mark Ritz from Site Design Engineering, representing the applicants at 5 Gingy Lane. Project before you this evening is a proposal to construct a single-family dwelling, a detached garage, spa, patio, etc., on a property. All of the proposed structural work, except for the patio, will be outside the 50-foot wetland buffer zone. A small portion of the patio will be just inside the 50. No work inside the 25 at all. The proposed spa in question is going to be between 4 and 6 feet deep, so it's going to be a fairly small affair. We do have groundwater issues on this property. Data we've collected in the past indicates that groundwater is down at an elevation of somewhere between 19 and 20. We are proposing a foundation with a top of foundation at 29. Yes, I just wanted to confirm that on the plan, a 29. So we anticipate that our footings for the foundation will be at or just above groundwater, not in groundwater. So we would need a groundwater waiver for the footings for the house. The pool with a maximum depth of 6 feet will be greater than 2 feet above high groundwater, so that will not need a waiver. And the proposed garage will be on a slab, so that will also not require a groundwater waiver. The remainder of the property, the portion of the property to the left of the house is not, that's a drainage easement and rain garden area as part of the old subdivision that was done for this property. That's going to be maintained as is. And that's pretty much the extent of the project. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions from commissioners? And yes, Linda.
Did Brian see the pictures that we got yesterday and today? Through you, Mr. Chairman?
Mark, you mean Mark Ritz?
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah. Mark, did you see the pictures that came through? At least I saw one.
I did not see any photos today, no.
There was a whole bunch today that were, I think there may be 4 or 5 in one little packet that came late today that I saw them. And it's a lake. It's not just wet, it's a lake. And I used to live around the corner up there on Delaney. And it was wet back in the day when we first started building those things, because the Lily Pond estuary ran under our front yard and we used to float around in our front yard in a dinghy with the ducks, and it runs underneath there and it runs all the way down to Lily Pond. And it runs right under this development, and it runs right under the guy across the street on Darrymore, because he had a problem with his foundation.
So
And
that,
it's wet. It's incredibly wet. So I think the wetland, I don't know if the wetland needs to be reassessed, quote unquote wetland now, or we're dealing with the boundaries that were in existence before it turned into a lake the last week or so.
thank you, Linda. And Mark, did you see the picture I put on the screen there?
I did. I'd like to see a more detailed version. Obviously, that was helpful. That gave me some indication. But
Okay.
we're working off of a delineation that was done a number of years ago and has been upheld in various portions of it on other on other adjacent properties. And looking at this property under sort of normal conditions, the wetland boundaries did seem to be consistent with what had been there previously. We could certainly have it reevaluated if the commission feels that that's necessary. But I would like to remind that we do get areas that get occasional flooding that aren't necessarily wet, but we could certainly have it looked at again.
Thank you, Mark. I certainly think that the neighbors would appreciate that. But before I go to abutters, Seth, do you have something to say?
Yes, thank you. I was just going to ask for that, either an updated delineation or a little bit more narrative about the permitting history. Like, I know you said that that's an older delineation that has been referenced in other permits, but if none of them are within the last 3 years, then it would need to be redone. So some analysis of that permitting history and the delineation history would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Seth and Linda. It reminds me a little bit of Meter Street, and I don't want to get us sidetracked, but there's been a lot of development around it, and I'm not saying anything changed or couldn't be amended with the proper drainage, but it's probably worth a look and a site visit when we can do it.
Thank you, Mike. I agree. And so if there are no further questions or comments from commissioners, Mr. Gillum, I believe you had your hand up first, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Ann. First of all, let me identify myself. For the purposes of the town records, I'm James E. Gillum Jr. on the notifications, and I reside at 56 North Liberty Street with my wife, Sarah Horn Gillum, and we've been there for over 30 years. I've been contacted by two of my neighbors, three in fact, Bob and Susie Schiff, who live at 60 North Liberty Street, Joe and Eleanor Green, who live at 58 North Liberty Street, and also I know the Lermatras, who live at 62 North Liberty Street, had some concerns. I'm the only one that lives here year round. One of the other houses has someone that lives in the winter. I would say, first of all, I want to preface this all by saying I'm not opposed to the project or a dwelling being, well, I'm not opposed to a dwelling being built on the lot. Let's put it that way. And to the best of my knowledge, neither are these neighbors and abutters. But what they are concerned about is the groundwater. I mean, in fact, the applicants, I consider them friends, and I knew their late father, Phil, for many years. And I know it's an oversized lot. It has a grain garden on it. The proposed building envelope, you know, is what it is. And I think this application is probably to front run any changes that we have in the setbacks of from 50 to 75 feet, perhaps, that are coming down the pike or not. If I can give you a little history in the area. In the last 15 to 20 years, there's been a lot of development in the area, including, you know, obviously on Gingy Lane and north, and also to the south toward Westchester. There has been flooding in the general area in three specific instances, one of which was back in 2007 when a house was demolished and a new house was being built with a full basement at 51 Westchester Street, which would be at the tail end of this groundwater flow, stormwater flow, or whatever you want to call it. That house was later moved closer to Westchester Street by action before the Concom because it was causing flooding basically for the whole neighborhood, knowing Westchester all the way back up into the North Liberty area. And then the next instance we have significant flooding was in 2021 when the house and second dwelling at 13 Gingy Lane was being constructed. In my own backyard, I had a significant amount of water, no intrusion into the house, which sits on a higher point toward the road, but the backyard was significantly flooded. And so were the neighbors to the sides, their backyards and their side yards. And some of the neighbors, 60, for instance, has crawl space, no basement, but it was up to the joists at the time, just about. Now in the third incident and the most significant incident, I guess most recent, was last January, about a year ago exactly, when the house at 9 Gingy Lane, when the excavation was done for the main house at 9 Gingy Lane. There's no 7 Gingy Lane between 5 and 9. So the rain garden is perhaps a 7, so to speak. But at 9, when the main house the foundation was dug, the water table got so high that there was water in the basement of 62 North Liberty Street significantly, and in my own back of my basement as well. And I'm again on the high rise up toward North Liberty Street itself, not lower down. I actually met with the applicant's father, took him for a tour of the neighborhood, showed him what was going on, met with the builder. And we have some discussions about how to get rid of the water. There's some issues up there to be considered. There are grates in the road of Gingy Lane itself. They're not drainage grate. They're just catch basins, basically small catch basins. In North Liberty Street, unbeknownst to some people, they think those are drains like they are on Westchester streets that flow, but they're two catch basins that are close by. So basically water out of these basements when they're being dug and pumped out, A, can't go into the wetland, obviously. B, can't go into the catch basins on Gingy Lane, and C, they can't go into the North Liberty Street catch basins either, because then it just floods the street and it goes back into the wetland. So that's kind of where things are from a historical standpoint. I mean, obviously I defer to the board and obviously to the chairman and the conservation agent on this, but and to the engineers themselves. But obviously some test holes and, you know, before the foundation, a full foundation may not be possible on this particular site. I'm not saying that you can't build there, but a full basement may not be feasibly possible if it adds to the groundwater. You know, any drainage off, you know, downspouts, whatnot like that can't drain back into the wetland basically. And during the construction, if there's any water produced, it will actually should be actually taken off the site. If it has to be trucked off, it has to be trucked off, because it cannot be in a hose like they tried to do before, put into the drains either on North Liberty or on Gingy Lane, because they're only catch basins and they overflow and flow back into the wetland. So our concern is really groundwater. It has nothing to do with their right to build, every right to build. But again, we don't want to add to a problem that's obviously been aggravated a little bit in the near past.
Right. And thank you for your for your extensive history to get sort of round out the application that we have before us. And so, Mr. Rubin, Mrs. Rubin, or Miss Rubin, do you have anything to add that beyond what Mr. Gillum has said and beyond what you wrote out in your letter?
Thank you, commissioners. I appreciate the time for us as abutters to speak. Mr. Gilliam spoke brilliantly on some of the water issues of Gingy Lane. I speak as both a homeowner at 12 Gingy as well as a trustee on the HOA. I think collectively across the street, none of us are opposed to the Manila's building on 5 Gingy, but there's been significant water issues on the street as each house has been built out. A number of us on the opposite side of the street, which is the lower end of the street, have had water issues in our foundations and basements that we've been battling since 2011. So as both 9 Gingy, 13, and now 5 are getting developed, we have all had significant concerns about the groundwater, and, you know, appreciate that Nantucket's groundwater has changed. But as this next house gets built, and given how many structures are being put on each of these lots across the street, I think all of us are just asking the commission to evaluate the groundwater and look at the wetland delineation. And especially, we were told that when we purchased, as some of the other homeowners, that this rain garden was part of conservation land. And so there's been some back and forth about what that land actually is. But I think that the recent pictures and the amount of water sitting there raise some issues for all of us as homeowners.
Thank you, Ms. Rubin. And the photographs are certainly, or the photograph I saw certainly makes your point. So the gentleman who on our screen, it says Elizabeth, and I wonder if you could identify yourself before you go.
Yeah, JJ Davis. My wife Elizabeth is sitting here with me. We live across the street at 8G, directly across from the proposed building site. And you know, thank you for allowing us to chime in. For me, I'm not ready to say that I'm thrilled with building there. I've only owned for 2 years here. It was represented to us that was sort of conservation or rainwater land. That's a separate issue. I would say, just as someone who's done sort of a lot of building and commercial and residential real estate, that our street does not have drainage. And so, you know, it slopes down, it's graded down into the front of this building lot. And there's a cutout on the curb. And so we look out at it every day, and the water drains into there. And as you can see, there's, you know, a couple feet of water still in that area that's not draining. When it overflows straight out towards our property, right? And so comes right directly towards 8 Gingy. And, we have severe reservations that without a regrading or an alternate, where is the water from the street going to drain? Because right now it would pool in front of our home. If in fact that water is not allowed to be able to push back onto that lot. And so, just from a common sense perspective, if we all went outside and we put marbles and we just let them roll, they'll roll right there in front of that property because it's a drainage point. So, this is our major concern because as, Anna mentioned, and we have had a little bit of a moisture in our basement, maybe more than a little bit in past years when there's been heavier rains. And, we have severe reservations about where that water would come if in fact this is not a, active drainage point.
Thank you, sir. So, Mark, clearly food for thought. And do you have anything else to say, sir? So your hand is still up.
Oh, sorry. No, thank you. I'm good. I'll take care of that. Thank you.
Mark, so you're prepared to come back with some proposals, or?
Well, I can speak to Dan Malloy, who's done the engineering on this, and we can take a closer look, and we can also do another evaluation of the wetland if that's what the commission would like us to do. So, with that said, we'd like to continue unless there are other issues anyone would like to bring up, other questions or concerns.
Well, I think that would clearly be a help. And Mark, yes.
Thank you, Ian. To Mark Ritz, I take it your intention is to build a full cellar. Is that written in concrete, or is that if the groundwater is in fact as high as we think it is, might you consider a different design for the first floor rather than a full basement?
Obviously, we'd like an opportunity to reevaluate things. The current proposal is for a full basement, but we have to see what, if conditions have changed significantly, we may need to rethink that. But, I won't propose anything until we've had a closer look at things.
Right. Linda, is your hand up?
Yeah, just anecdotally, I'll go back to why everybody has trouble with their foundations over there. Our house was on the corner of Delaney and Cliff at 64 Cliff. There are now 4 houses there. The amount of money they had to spend on those foundations because Lily Pond's estuary starts directly across the street towards Capam. It runs directly under our house, over the houses behind us, under all of these houses, sort of deposits itself right in this lot and keeps going. That cost them almost $200,000 for that basement. The guys across the street from us couldn't put a basement in, they tried. So I think they need to be aware of the fact that everybody's had trouble with their foundations if they want a full basement, and you're even closer to Lily Pond and it's already wet right next to you. My grandparents said, screw it, and filled the basement with 12 feet of sand because they got sick and tired of listening to the pump. So this basement thing, and then the fact that the wetlands have changed because the water table's gone up, needs to be looked at. Because when they didn't open Hummock Pond, our front yard filled completely with water. When they opened Hummock Pond, our front yard actually drained. We sat there and watched it drain. It's bizarre. So this entire area has issues, and the water table has risen. So just word of caution here. And I think it needs to be delineated again.
I think everybody's aware of these issues at this point. So, Mark, do you wish to continue until February the 1st or later?
Why don't we start with continuing to the 1st? We'll see what we can determine in that time frame and reconvene then.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that brings us on to amended orders of conditions, 32 Halbert Trust, 32 Halbert Avenue, Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the application for work within land subject to coastal storm flowage. And there had been questions, or I should say some concerns with the proposed plant species that had been on the previously submitted landscape plan. And so we filed a revised plan that change those species to the plant schedule that you see on your screen now. And I hope that addresses the outstanding concerns. Quick synopsis of the overall changes was to put in a closed loop geo well system, the shed, some minor tweaks to the steps, decks. Again, not within the buffer zone to the vegetated wetland, but just within land subject to coastal storm flowage. And then the landscaping shown on the plan with the driveway modified and the plantings. So I hope that the revised plan addresses the outstanding concerns, and if not, please let me know.
Thanks, Art. Any comments from commissioners? So seeing none, a motion to approve this amended order of conditions. Thank you, Mark. Seconded by Joe. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye.
Thank you.
So that brings us on to minor mods. Bailey at 83 Sankaty Road. Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. For the record, Brian Madden, representing the Baileys. The minor mod simply entails some minor modifications to the driveway layout, all in compliance with the local regulations. And then just some associated landscaping updates based off the driveway layout. That's it.
Great. Thank you. And unless anybody wants to say anything otherwise, we would like to make a motion to approve this minor modification. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye.
Thank
That
you all.
brings us- Thank you.
Okay.
This brings us on to certificates of compliance, 59B Pulpus Road, LLC, 59B Pulpus Road. Art?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was for residential development of a vacant lot within the 100-foot buffer zone partially within the 100-foot buffer zone to a isolated vegetated wetland, and that work has been completed in substantial compliance. We show the 38-foot buffer zone on this, which is somewhat unusual, but just to perhaps refresh the commission's memory, that was in order to maintain the 50% undisturbed between the 25 and 50-foot buffer zone. And then the pool fence is located along the 50-foot buffer zone. So with that, I believe the work was completed as permitted.
Great. Did you get out there, Will, have a look?
Yes. And I have continuing conditions for this one. Everything has been completed as shown, but we had our pool and lighting conditions. So it's 19 through 23.
Great. Thank you. So a motion to issue a certificate of compliance with conditions attached. Thank you, Mike. Seconded by Joe. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And there's a reissue for Nantucket Islands Land Bank, 158 Orange Street. And I'm slightly confused because there's also something else with Nantucket Islands Land Bank. So I'm sure you'll straighten that out. So Rachel?
Thank you very much, Mr. Golding. I am here tonight presenting two certificate of compliances for 158 Orange Street. This is a property where we've done substantial work over time, and the first, well, I'm gonna flip these, but the first one is a new request for a certificate of compliance for herbicide management for SE 482689, and this is something we've been working on where we've been treating the Phragmites within the small wetland that is on the property. And there's substantial completion of that project. And so we thought that it was time to apply for a certificate of compliance. In terms of a reissue request for the certificate of compliance for SE 482784, which was the certificate of compliance for a dock installation. I might have to defer to Will to understand the administrative underpinnings of why we need a reissue. But regardless, we're requesting a reissue for the dock installation on at 158 Orange.
Well, thank you, Rachel. I feel better.
Okay.
Will, please.
I can quickly clear that up. The classic story that usually happens when we have a reissue is that at some point somebody checked out the hard copy from the office and then it either was never returned or went MIA, yada yada. So that had been issued before. We just have to vote on it formally to reissue. And the other one did have monitoring reports, and all monitoring reports have been submitted. I don't know if we're taking both together. I know we talked about both briefly, but
Sure. I think we can handle that unless, Seth, you want to make a point of order?
I think we probably have to vote on them separately, technically, but I'm just commenting on both.
All right.
Is there any ongoing conditions for the 26, whatever it is?
The other one, so they actually have a
2689.
new, and sorry, through you, Ian. They have a new order of conditions from July, so they don't need ongoing conditions because they have a new OOC for the same property for the same reason. Unless I was misunderstanding that, Rachel.
It's a similar request, but it's slightly different and has some additional work associated with it.
Right.
Okay, let's separate them then for purposes of proposing a certificate of compliance for the reissue. I entertain a motion to approve. Thank you, Mark. Seconded by Seth. Thank you, Seth. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. And make a motion to approve a certificate of appliance for 158 Orange Street, Nantucket Island Land Bank, SE 48-2689. Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Mike. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brian.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
That brings us on to, let me see, Pate 5 Francis Street. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it doesn't have an accent, an acute accent, so I'm not going to say pate. Will?
I'm not sure if anybody's on for this one. But I can take it if not. It's very simple.
Yeah.
This was for a small addition on 5 Francis Street. I did my site visit on Tuesday. Everything's as depicted on the plan, and there are no ongoing conditions. There was only a condition 18 on the permit.
Great. Thank you. So motion to issue a certificate as described. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Mike. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So that brings us on to orders of conditions. And I think these first is 14 and 16 Sheep's Pond Road.
All right. So for 14 and 16 Sheep's Pond, this was the removal of existing structures and the let's see. Sorry, I thought I missed something, but all of the new structures are all proposed outside of the 100, so that's why it's not in the overview. And if you'll remember, the pool's outside of the 100 too. But we did add the lighting conditions and condition 21 that the pool shall not be discharged into an area within jurisdiction of the commission.
Great, thank you, Will. Yes, Seth.
Thank you. A couple thoughts here. First, since we're working in an area that's pretty close to the coastal bank at this point, I think we should add some conditions, talking about minimizing sedimentation and erosion while doing that work. And maybe actually having some, I know they have proposed erosion controls, but maybe having some requirements that machinery be stored outside the 100-foot buffer during that process. And then also, since there are some different septic type things and possibly more that haven't been surveyed, just a requirement that should exposed material, start to come out of the bank, that it be removed.
Thank you, Seth.
I'm gonna share my screen again, and I did not type fast enough. I got the first one so far. Can you refresh me on the third one, Seth? Sorry.
I'm just looking at the plan again, and it may not be actually that relevant since all the septic components are pretty far away from where the active bank are. But it was asking for any material that essentially came out of that bank to be removed upon discovery, but I'm not sure that we actually need that based on where
It's kind of on the
the
opposite
tanks
side of
are.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Will, how about in 22, instead of course, duration of the project?
I'll take that.
And I think probably buffer in 23, it's unnecessary to capitalize. Great, thank you. Okay. So if there are no further suggestions, a motion to approve is amended, please. Thank you, Joe. And seconded by Tim. Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So that basically brings us on to the Nantucket Island Land Bank, 40 Western Avenue.
All right, we've got the bench installation to the coastal dune field. We've just had condition 18 as there's not going to be any fill brought in for this project or anything. In our waiver down here for the 25-foot natural undisturbed area to the coastal dune.
Great. Thank you. And if there are no suggestions, a motion to approve is drafted. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Bill Klandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
and Golding, aye. So, thanks, Tim. That brings us on to, if I say Tim, I meant Will. Thank you, Will, for doing that. No extensions of orders, so then that brings us on to other business, and I don't believe there are any minutes to approve. And monitoring reports, Will.
I've got two very similar, both from the land bank. One is for 16 East Creek Road, and the other one is for I almost said the date. The other one is for 21 Grove Lane. These were both for invasive species control, but both of these are a few years into the project, and both of the monitoring reports were monitoring reports stating that no herbicide treatment was necessary in 2023. So both very similar and satisfactory.
Great. Thank you. That brings us on to enforcement actions, potential enforcement actions. And the first one is 79 Baxter Road. And I assume everybody has seen the pictures, and has everybody followed the email thread? Okay, Will, would you like to take the floor?
Yeah, I think it might be helpful just to quickly, I know I sent this email out yesterday, and I apologize for this being right before the meeting, but we received so many new pictures after all the storms this weekend, if you guys can imagine. So we received a lot of photos of that array, and it's clear that, you know, a substantial amount of the array at 79 Baxter is gone. It's missing. This raised questions, you know, between Jeff and I, and for members of the public and whatnot. If an order of conditions is lapsed, and you have, even though it's storm damage, even though you have, like, you know, if you have half of a structure or a significant amount of a structure missing, can the work to repair it still be considered maintenance, or does that require a new permit? And this question was above us, so we called DEP, and we put DEP on speakerphone, and we just described a project like that and explained what happened. And they very clearly told Jeff and I that it would require a new permit and a new order of conditions. So that repair work was scheduled to be done today, and notified the contractor yesterday morning, and we received correspondence from the homeowner at 79. But I don't believe anybody is here. I'd asked for through the contractor, I had asked for a representative of the project to be here tonight, and we don't have anybody. So that is where we're at. That's the current state.
So let me just make this clear. That DEP said that it was necessary to have a new notice of intent going forward from the applicant, from the owners of 79 Baxter Road.
Yes, and I think I could very easily get this in writing too. we contacted like our Southeast regional coordinator, and he didn't even think for a second about the answer. It was like a very clear, obvious, hey, the OOC is the order of conditions has lapsed. A significant amount of the structure is gone. You're not just like pouring a little bit of sand over the template or something like that. It's beyond maintenance. So like I said, I'd be happy to get that in writing. That was just through a phone call, but
Well, it certainly wouldn't hurt, I don't think.
yeah, it never does.
Was that your point, Seth?
Yeah, I think that's helpful to get it in writing, but I do have one question regarding the permitting history here. So I know the order of conditions is like around 10 years old, but was a certificate of compliance ever obtained or no?
That's a good question.
I can try to answer that for you quickly. It'll take me a minute if you want to go on to the next question, Sir Chair.
Okay. Lord Chair, if you please. Sure. So, yes, Mike.
I mean, I would say if DEP is saying a new order of conditions, there's not much debate we have to have about that. It would be great to have it in writing so it doesn't become a he said, she said, if possible. Thank you.
Right. I completely agree, but I think it's notice of intent has to preclude the AOC. So, yeah. And Spruce, I see your hand up. If you'd like to identify yourself.
Burton Balkind, speaking on behalf of myself. If it does come to a new order of conditions, I would ask that please put a cleanup component in that. I think we've already discussed that, but I've gotten reports from, I'm not on island, but I've gotten reports from a number of people who said the beaches from Sacajah to Great Point to where the people have been able to travel is littered, and I mean littered with core product all over the place. And you can imagine 7 rows of core array gone and where they're ended up. I mean, that's just probably a small portion of it. But anyways, I think it is a resource issue for both entanglement for wildlife and for safety of the beaches. Thank you.
So thank you, Spruce. And I think I should have brought that up, or one of us should, because I think the owners of 79 Baxter Road should be picking up the debris. And Seth, do you have a comment to make?
Let Will go first.
Very, very quickly, just based on my search right now, I'm not seeing one just popped up. Sometimes the VPN goes very slow. It looks like they did apply for a COC in 2015, but I'd have to do a better search just to make sure this isn't for another project. So I don't want to definitely say, but it looks like I have a COC from 2015.
Okay, thank you. It's just helpful to know the history. I know there was also enforcement orders prior on that property that changed some of the conditions that were agreed to, but it's just good to have everything in place before we move forward. But I think that it's good to get the letter in writing from DEP. But I feel comfortable moving forward towards action at this meeting, and I would make a motion for the staff to draft a letter to the property owner requiring them to submit a notice of intent at the site. And if DEP ends up coming back and says, oh no, we're mistaken, we could always retract that letter, but it seems like it's a pretty clear case here.
Yeah.
So I would like them to pick up the debris before they come in with a new notice of intent. Is that something that we can condition? Or is that depriving them of their God-given rights to apply? Well, either Will or Seth.
If I may, I think there's ways to do that. Instead of writing a letter, we could actually issue an enforcement order that requires them to take multiple steps. One would be to cease and desist work on the site, or maybe that already happened. And then two would be to clean up the debris, and then next would be to submit a notice of intent, essentially to remediate or bring the project back into compliance.
Okay. So I don't think we're asking them to bring the project back into compliance, because I would say that that's rendered moot by having to have a new notice of intent. I do absolutely feel that we should have an enforcement order out, if we don't already, to make sure that it's picked up. And Linda, I see your hand up, Linda.
Yeah, they're two separate things. I don't want to say you have to do this. I'm not sure if that's what Seth said. You can't tell them to do this before they can apply. You can't do that. They can make an application for a new notice of intent anytime they want, and it cannot be predicated on something else legally. I do agree that they need to have the enforcement letter, but they can apply for a new one tomorrow.
Right.
They can't be tied to each other, because that you can't legally tie
You made
something in
that-
the future
you
to
made that
this.
clear, Linda. You don't have to keep on repeating yourself. Thank you. And yes, Seth.
Yeah, sorry if I was unclear. What I meant to say in the enforcement order was that there would be a clause compelling them to submit a notice of intent. If they want to do that before they even get the letter, after they watch the recording of this this webinar right now, they could do it, 5 seconds from now if they want. But this is just putting the wheels in place, requiring them to do it due to the letter. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. So we're all in agreement, I believe, that we would like Will to issue out an enforcement order to pick up the mess. So yes, Mark.
And I would suggest to, in that letter to them, mention the extent of the cleanup might be involved. I can't vouch for the fact that it goes from Sankaty to Great Point, but I would think it's all along that beach. But that should be included, not just clean up the beach in front of 79.
Right. Right. So, Linda, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that covers it.
Great, thank you. Okay, and let me see, also under enforcement actions, Tom Nevers.
Do we need a motion, Ian, on that?
Yes, I think we do. Thank you, Mark, for reminding me of my obligations. Would you like to make that motion?
I would indeed.
Thank you very much. And Joe seconds it. Thank you, Joe, by roll call vote. Mark Beal.
Aye.
Jim Crane.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Thank you. Joe Plandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye. So that brings us on to Tom Nevers Beach. And do you mean by the Navy base?
Yes.
Is that what you meant by that? Okay.
There is no beach. That's the
Well,
point.
you could dive off the remains of the cement, whatever it
And
is.
it's a septic, and hit the septic system. That's what you're gonna hit.
Right.
It's getting a little bit closer to you almost have to jump from the bluff to the septic tank thing now. It's not really connected anymore.
Right.
But Vince is here. He's been hanging out in the shadows patiently just for this.
Great. Well, Vince, thank you for your patience, and please bring us up to speed.
With pleasure, and thank you, Ian. So I understand that you want to push forward with an enforcement. I am not here to dissuade you. I'm just here to brief you on the projects that we're undertaking in this area. So just to be clear, I am not leading this project. I'm assisting on this project. Charlie Palaki, the Parks and Recreation Manager, is leading this project as it is on a Parks and Recreation property at Tom Nevers Fields. I'm assisting because of the resilience part of this. And that's my interest in this project. And as it would happen, where our interests collide tonight. I think roughly speaking, about 15, 16 months ago, Charlie invited me in to assist on the project to get the resilience and input into how we can fix the bluff face in that area. The basic premise is that everybody knows it, everybody sees it. The beach is littered with everything from gigantic chunks of concrete that are in the surf, in the water, on the beach. And then there's other smaller stuff that's coming out in storms. There's even pipes sticking 15 feet out from the bank from the old base material, from when the days when the base was active. The purpose of this project that was funded about, I think, 3 years ago, maybe 3 years ago at town meeting, was to develop a plan to remediate the material that's coming out of the bank. The idea of the project, and you're going to see a notice of intent on this at some point, is to have dig back the face of the bank a distance, take out all of the material, put in clean fill, redo the bank face, and then have appropriate frontage that can behave more naturally and have a more resilient face to the bank. Unfortunately, the past three storms, three storms in a week, and the storm on December 18th weren't kind to this area. The first two storms were quite bad to this area of the 3 in a week storms. It's kind of put the project in a bit of a predicament. We had done lots of surveys. I think it's Wesson and Sampson that's working on the project to do all the designs in the bank face, understand how far we're going to have to dig back to take out material and how much clean fill we'll need. But unfortunately, now the entire topography of the bank face has changed, and we're going to have to resurvey. And we had an emergency meeting with the consultants last week to get them back on island to get the resurveying done to keep the project on course. You can also imagine, because there's an in-water element to this, there might be some stuff that's in the tide line and in the below the tide line. We've also been working with other groups like US Army Corps of Engineers trying to get their input over time and this kind of thing. So it's an involved project and quite substantial. The timelines we're trying to keep to the same timelines, but we might have to push it back a bit. But I'm hoping to have a notice of intent in the next several months, 4 or 5 months, if we can, and then remediate all the issues in this area. We've run up against another problem with cleaning the beach in this area. There's no good access point to get down. The bluff face at the moment drops anywhere between 12 at the smallest right at the beach and 30 feet. And we're trying to investigate going on further east and further west to get material off the beach. That's the point behind the enforcement. And that's entirely your prerogative. But we've been working on it and trying to locate access points. And then once we do, the distances we'll have to traverse down the beach to do the cleaning. It's all under investigation at the moment. But what we're doing is developing the plan. It's also worth pointing out that there is a town meeting warrant article that was approved last night at the select board, I think. The item is to fund the construction phase of that plan. So all things that are in the works that would be beneficial for this commission to know that we're developing a plan, we're working on it. And thank you very kindly for your time.
Thank you, Vince. There was a posting. Yes, I'll keep my comments till last. Mike, I believe you got your hand up just before Seth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Mike, I guess it's a question or a thought for Vince. Does the enforcement action, if we choose to issue one, is that deemed helpful or prohibitive? And what I mean is, if it's there and you have the opportunity to get down and do the cleanup work and that's in place, does that help or does it not help where you're at with the further planning on this project? Thank you.
I hate to say it, I punt to Will because he may know more in terms of permitting, I mean. I think we already have the necessary procedures in place to get the beach cleaned for the small items, not the large items. But if enforcement would make that easier, and fine, I don't mind. But we're already working and planning towards this end anyway, for the small items, not the large. The large come under the NOI.
Thank you. Seth? Or Will, did you want to add to what Vince had to say before I ask Seth to chime in?
Sure, yeah. Through you, I just wanted to say that I think the only benefit that my chair's falling apart. The only benefit that I can think of maybe just sort of covering the DPW's tracks for access to the beach if they are able to access the beach. I know that there's several beach accesses nearby, but the DPW, I think Charlie may have tried to fly a drone or something to see how wide the beach is. It may not be traversable from the existing beach accesses to get to that section of beach. And so I'm not sure if it's even possible at this point without more of an operation.
Thank you, Will. Seth?
All right. Well, it was a military base, so we'll use a military quote. This Eisenhower, he said that planning is everything, but the plan is nothing. And so I hear what you're saying, Vince, and I appreciate, how the town government works. And I think that the plans in place through Weston and Sampson and everything are going to lead to a positive outcome. But the timeline is just way too far in the future. So we need to do some triage. I know that there are like huge cast concrete tanks that nothing can be done about them now, but technically, because there's no permit on the site, even if somebody went down and just like started picking up debris with their hands, pieces of pipe and rubble and whatever, that's technically not permitted. So I do think we do need to put an enforcement order into place to allow what can be done in-house to start as soon as possible. And I understand that the beach accesses might not be there, but we have emergency permit abilities to potentially create a new ramp or a temporary access to the beach, or consider alternative technologies like getting a crane or getting some boat-based cleanup in there. I know all these things cost money and they're effort intensive and they're time intensive, but I 100% believe the enforcement order gives the town latitude to start that process. Right now, they can't do anything. They technically can't even pick up debris right now with no enforcement order. So I think we should move forward on that. It's not being a punitive enforcement order, but being an enforcement order that allows triage activities to start happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Vince, I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, Seth has a good point. There's a lot of things that can be done, but the budget isn't necessarily there for it. But we could, and I appreciate the idea of a crane, but that bank edge is vertical and cracking. I wouldn't want to put anything on that bank edge until it's come back to a better angle of repose, and that's going to also be more debris on the beach, frankly. But yes, we're working towards that end of doing the absolute basic, and if the enforcement is a way of getting that done, great. If it allows us any more power to get the cleanup done faster for the small items, fine. I'm not opposed to it. That I'm not arguing against this commission at all. And plus, you have the right to do as you please anyway. So I'm just was providing the information that yes, we're working on both ends of this. And the other point I might not have been clear on, but Will caught it. Even if we get access a distance east or west, even we looked at the sewer beds and we're looking at the sewer beds in Sconset, I mean, and looking at if we can drive down the length of the beach there. and there's parts that are so narrow. We're not there yet. It's physically not possible. And given that it's the winter and the storm season, I don't know that a boat access is the way to go either. I'd be quite fearful for people's lives in that scenario. But I do appreciate that there are things we can do and can get done, and that might be a good way to get it done. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you, Vince. Will, did you have anything to add? No, okay. Mark?
Yes, thank you. Vince, is it yours and the town's intentions to stabilize that bluff?
If I might, Chair Golding?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Yes, it is. We had a design. That design is going to have to be very seriously rethought because we were relying on creating a small dune system where there was a dune system. Now there's like a 10-foot high tank sticking out in front of where that area used to be. So that design is no longer viable. We're going to have to come up with a different design now. But yes, it is our intention to stabilize that bluff face using natural methods where possible.
May I follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please do.
I guess I'm speaking now as a townsperson rather than a commissioner of events, and that is, the town's going to spend tens and probably hundreds of millions of dollars on this sort of a project around the island, roads, in town, building levees. I'm wondering if this is the right spot to be focusing probably a lot of town money on for a ball field when we're talking about Steamboat Wharf and Hobart Avenue in town and Sconset Road or Sakatcha there's not enough money to go around when you're talking about all the projects that are in front of the town just in coastal resilience, let alone the sewer, the dump, our island home. Saving a ball field is worthwhile if you have, I think, a lot of money, but I don't think we're going to have a lot of money. So I'm wondering if the focus is, I hate to say it, Vince, but is the focus on the wrong spot right now?
Yes. So Vince, I think it's a rhetorical question in a sense.
I think so.
It happens to mirror my feelings, my thoughts, because there's no vital infrastructure whatsoever. And so I was very surprised to hear that there was a plot, I shouldn't say a plot, plan afoot to spend any money on trying to do anything about the erosion. And I absolutely agree with Seth that I think we need to issue an enforcement order. My wife, who is on social media, saw a picture on Facebook yesterday of a massive articulated dump truck, I assume out on the West End, that almost ran over a seal. And so I assume it belongs to the DPW. I can't believe a private party would have something that size. Is that right? But anyway,
as I understand, that was, and I don't want to get into it, but it was in the Jetties to Cliffside area, and as I understand it, it was permitted works, private.
But maybe they'd volunteer to help on the South Shore. But thank you for. I don't want to get off topic.
No,
so,
if I might, if it's okay, Ian,
yes.
one comment. And I do applaud Mark on his comments. And yes, there are a great many number of vital areas. And I hope, Ian, it didn't give you flashbacks to your Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee days, but we've had these conversations over and over again. They are all too regular. Where do we save first? One of the ways of looking at it is quite simple. We've been at the planning for this one for a long time. It's now for the funding for a different question in front of a very different group at town meeting. And that's the level that it's at right now. I'm not going to say one way or another what should happen there. That's not my prerogative. What I would like to say is everywhere has issues. How do we decide to go first? It has been a constant question at the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee of how do you prioritize these things? The fact that this has been an ongoing area of issue for a great many decades, frankly, has meant that there's been a lot of effort expended on this area. And the fact that there's now a resilience element to it is a new part of what was the original plan, which was only to remediate the beach. And I added to that, and that was a cost-effective small add to the beach remediation part, which was the original plan. Not that it be a fully resilient project. It isn't. It's just adding resilience to an ongoing project.
Thank you, Vince.
No insult intended, Vince.
So Mike, did you have your hand up? You're okay. Spruce, do you want to chime in?
Yes, Chairman. I would. I would through you to Vince. I would just ask Vince, and when this project goes forward with the NOI, that you coordinate your project if you can with SBPF and the permit holders at 79 Baxter Road. Maybe we can do as little in disturbance to the beach down there. So maybe if you're going to be doing work down there, you can it'd be asked that you coordinate it somewhat with those, because there's going to be probably some work done on both 79 and the GO2 project in the future, I imagine. That would just be my ask. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome, Spruce. Okay, so Seth, would you like to make a motion regarding an enforcement order?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll move to issue an enforcement order requiring that, or I guess allowing the site to be remediated to the extent possible with the town capacity at this point.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Kandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye, but Mr. Chairman, can we, part of that letter, can it say this is not meant to be punitive, but to enable them to start remediation immediately, just so they understand that we're not smacking the town upside the head?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Okay,
we'll,
thanks.
we'll understand that. And that's an aye on your behalf.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And Ian Golding, aye. So reports from Crack. And thank you, Vince, for chiming in. Thank you. Take care.
Yeah, I have just a brief report. Several Crack members went out to the sewer beds to see the erosion yesterday, which was extensive. And David Gray gave us a tour and said that the erosion is almost up to the most seaward sewer bed, which they want to protect somehow. So they have a bunch of meetings set up in a couple of weeks, I think, with Mass DEP and a bunch of organizations to try to figure out a plan. So I assume that we'll be having to get involved in that at some point in the next month or so. They don't want the most seaward sewer bed to flood, because then it will affect the other sewer beds because they're connected. So, but it was pretty extraordinary. It's they lost about 100 feet of beach or something like that. So anyway, that's just wanted to let you know that's the latest Crack activity.
Well, it's really interesting, and thank you. And was there any discussion of funds available from the state or the feds?
David said that they'll be applying for grants, and they are available. It's just a matter of getting the grant applications in and so on. He honestly seemed a little frenzied because it was a big hit, and they're worried about what they can do and what they should do. Now, let me ask you this, since I don't know, I assume that Concom would need to permit whatever they do there as well as anything. They're not a special case, right?
No.
Okay. Well, speaking of critical infrastructure, it's pretty serious. they're not concerned about losing capacity. They have more capacity than they need already, and they also have land, so they could create other sewer beds. So it isn't a matter of, you know, the island isn't at risk of losing its sewerage capacity, but they are. The ocean is close, and they've got to figure out what to do. And they may just fill in that sewer bed. They're trying to come up with a plan, and I'm sure we'll hear about it sooner or later. So,
Great. Thank you, Tim. Let me see. CPC. Mark?
Yes, thank you. We have wrapped up our final numbers and allocations for the various CPC grants, and it'll be on the town warrant town meeting.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
NP and EDC.
Nothing to report, Mr. Chair.
Harbor Plan. Linda?
It was 3.9 million that the CPC allocated among the three sections, so it was a pretty successful year for applicants. What am I doing? Oh, Harbor.
Yeah.
We're moving along. We got through one whole section and started down another route on another section. So it seems the process seems to be working now pretty smoothly because they're giving us information ahead of time, stuff that we've done, haven't done, sort of an outline of where we're going. So we each section at a time, and I think it's moving us along a little quicker than we have been moving along because we had all the surveys and compilation of all that information. So we have a meeting on Monday, and we're productive. It's the most productive hour-long meeting because we stick to 1 hour. It's the most productive hour-long meeting I've ever had on any board in 40 years. So we're accomplishing something.
Well, that deserves high praise. If only we could adopt it.
How about the HDC getting less than 4.5 hours? How about that one?
Really? And so, Joe, the offshore wind group?
They're off on vacation.
Ah, sensible. Sightseeing, no doubt. So, so Meredith Moldenar, I realize you've had your hand up, and before we get on to commissioners' comments, would you like to say something?
Oh, sorry, Chair. I think I may have been a few minutes late. I don't know if you addressed 79 Baxter. I was just here to listen in and to participate in that enforcement action, but I'm not sure if you've already addressed it.
Well, we have discussed it. I have no, I'm happy to hear your comments if my fellow commissioners don't mind listening, not opening it, but, adding it. So go ahead.
So, I mean, I saw the email that came from Will that went to Mr. Logger, who's the contractor on that project. And obviously, I know that there was some, I think, whatever, comments you had regarding 79 itself. I guess I went back and I asked Dwight Dunk for a copy of the order of condition, and it has something in there about 33% of the overall project. And so the question is, since 79 Baxter's impact, obviously, and the need to repair that portion is obviously less than 33%, we would ask if this could still be viewed as a maintenance and repair, since it's a small project of the overall Quar Terrace approved project, which was like 2,200 linear feet. But obviously, we are working and communicating with that homeowner to make sure that it does get repaired. I don't know if there was, debris, but they are going to be working to make sure that that gets addressed, and working with staff to make sure that they are compliant when that does get repaired.
So, Meredith, you saw that the DEP takes a different viewpoint, and from our perspective, I think that the DEP takes precedence in terms of our rulings. over a homeowner's perspective. So unless the DEP weighs in otherwise, I think we will be expecting a new NOI, and that we're not looking at it as being mere maintenance. So we've
So
requested.
Chair, I would just ask, did the DEP know about that condition in the OOC?
I would say that, yes. Yes, go ahead, Will.
Through you, Ian, I'll make sure, I'm gonna correspond with Mark at DEP and I'll send him the OC and everything. But we cannot be less strict than the DEP. So if the condition's in there, it does not matter. We can't write a condition that's less strict than the DEP ruling.
Thank you, Will. Also, Meredith, it would appear from the aerial pictures that 90% of the choir rolls have been destroyed, or more than 90% in front of 79 Baxter Road. So I'm not sure that provision would be, applicable, but why don't we wait to see what the DEP says? And I'm sure it's going to be raised with them if you choose.
I mean, the OOC says that it's a cumulative number, so it's not just 79% or of the 79 Baxter, but it would be 33% of the 2,220, which would be over 726 linear feet. So that's way bigger than Helmut's property. So even if Helmut's was, looked at, obviously, it's just a question. Obviously, I understand what you're saying. The DEP takes priority. I would say we can ask the DEP that question based on that condition. We'll address whatever decision they have or whatever your decision you have based on their recommendation.
All right.
You understand? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So that moves us on to commissioners' comments, and I don't know whether we should put the letter that that Jeff has produced, the rough draft, to the select board in either commissioners' comments or administrator staff reports. Does anybody have a preference? Joe?
Regarding the letter,
yes,
that you are sending out, there's a misspelling on page 1, last line.
Likelihood, yes.
You got it.
Yes, there are several suggestions that I would like to make grammatically. And shall we discuss the letter now? Okay. So is everybody in broad agreement with the sentiments expressed in the letter? And
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The overall sentiment, yes, but I think we're missing a few issues here. I think the two issues that are raised as specific things, the rehearing limit and the previous and existing MOUs, are relevant, but I don't think that's the complete scope of legal review that we've asked for in the past.
What would you like to add?
Well, we still have no answer to whether the contract documents carry the force and effect of law related to the removal of the houses at Baxter Road.
Yeah.
We previously asked for that and we have no opinion on that.
Right.
And I guess just two about beyond the existing and previous MOUs and license agreements, but also how does the ongoing removal order play into, and the ongoing lack of compliance play into the submission of a new notice of intent?
I agree with you. And I would like to add that, but I also think that we need to get this letter approved and sent into the select board as quickly as possible. Will?
Hey, through you, Ian, I was just going to suggest if there's any changes that we want to make to the letter, in order to accomplish what you just said, I'd like to get this out by tomorrow morning. But if there's any additions that we'd like to make, if we talk about them tonight, agree upon them, and if they can be emailed to me, I can add them into the letter this evening or early tomorrow morning and get it out.
Thank you. So,
if I may, I mean, I think the scope of my request is very straightforward. I don't know if Will has a document that could just be edited on screen, but it's really just those two things, in my opinion.
I am looking for it, Seth. I lost connection to my O drive again, but
or even the PDF, just adding a comment. I mean,
yeah,
however it's going to happen, but.
So my suggestion would be, since I have several typos that I'd like you to correct and a couple of other things, how about if we get in touch with you after the meeting and then you post the final version by tomorrow morning for everybody to read so that it can then be sent in? Does that make sense, rather than trying to deal with it right now? Will, do you?
Yeah, I think if it's easy enough to just email me the two comments, I can easily fix the typos. I see them right now. I just would like to get this out as early as possible tomorrow morning.
All right. So,
Ian, if I may make a suggestion.
Yes, please do, Mark.
I think that Seth's comments are right on.
Right.
I think both you and Will have a feeling for those comments. I would be happy to make a motion, if you're so allowed, to authorize a letter to be sent with those two additions per your approval.
Thank you, Mark. Do I see?
Does that make sense to you, Ian? Before you?
Yes, it does. Because Will, I'm happy to talk to you afterwards, after the meeting.
Absolutely.
So Tim, are you seconding that? You're muted, but that's a thumbs up, I take it.
Yeah, that's a second.
Okay, thank you. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mizzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Plandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. Thank you, everybody. So that brings us are there any other commissioners' comments, or should we go to administrator and staff reports?
Another good meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, I have a comment about enforcement orders. We talk about enforcement orders all the time. There was a good report written in the fall in the Massachusetts Conservation Commission newsletter that came out. And what struck me in here is that it says commissioners do not know that there is no legal authority to record an enforcement order. Now, why would you want to record an enforcement order? Well, if an alleged violator sells their property and the next owner then will be aware of the pending enforcement action. And what strikes me is Gully Road. That's a 3-year program. And should they sell out the current or the owners when they took out all those trees, should they sell out, the new person coming in will not have any idea unless it's recorded. But there are a whole pile of pitfalls with recording an enforcement order. And I wonder if, to get around it, instead of enforcement order, there's another word instead of enforcement that could be used. But I'll send this on.
Please
It's
do.
really well written. It's only one page.
Thank you. I'd like to read it.
Me
So-
too.
Same.
So, speaking of enforcement orders, or do we have oh, yes, Seth.
Yeah, thank you. And I believe it's Nantucket's longstanding tradition to have all enforcement orders recorded. Is that correct, Will?
To my knowledge, yes. I believe they are, and I think that's just a local thing, but I do really want to read that article.
Here's what it says. It says a bad idea and risky business.
Huh.
Well, soon, but
Please forward that along.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk
will-
about it later too, but I've had some discussions with people from MACC about it, and I have read similar things and I have my own thoughts, but we can maybe talk offline.
Yes.
Sure thing.
I'm sure that LLCs will be pinballing ownership backwards and forwards if they could avoid enforcement orders that way. So, okay, thanks, Joe. So, staff reports.
Sure. I just have quickly, we need to ratify an emergency certification form. This was for a house on Tuckernuck. I can show the form, but I don't know if I need to. And I think technically this only requires Ian's signature, but I think in the past we've always had everybody sign these and we vote on them, so I'm just going to continue that. But we got an emergency work permit from the Nantucket Building Department. This is for Rachel Freeman's family camp on Tuckernuck, which is getting closer to the bluff. So we're allowing them to move a section of the house and breezeway to the north portion of the property away from the bluff. And we're requiring an NOI to be submitted within 30 days for the actual work. So we'll see an NOI be submitted within the month.
Okay, so a motion to approve the issuance of or the ratification of an emergency order. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mark. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye. So on that note, a motion to end the meeting.
Check
Thank
your
you.
watch.
Yeah. It's not even 7.
Not the fastest meeting we've had, though.
Nope. But it's good with me.
Yeah. I can go pick up my food now.
Yes.
Wow.
All right, so that was seconded by Mike. By a roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Yeah.
Tim Bray.
Aye.
Seth Engelborg.
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding. Aye. And thank you, everybody. I wish you good evening. And Will, I'll reach out to you in a few minutes.
I'm right here. Everybody enjoy dinner at a reasonable hour.
Good night, everybody.
Yay.
Have a good night.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
all.
Good night.
Well done,
Good night.
Ian.
Thank you. Take care.
Just sign.